What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Great People TV with me, Ben Ibrahim. And before we start our episode, I'd like to say welcome back to the show. Yes, sorry we were on a bit of a break. Like most Malaysians and most Muslims around the world, we were celebrating Hari Raya. So I'd like to take this opportunity to all fellow Muslims to wish you a Selamat Hari Raya Aidil Fitri. Hope everything is safe and well, and hope you're not overeating. But one man who loves to overeat but controls his eating as well is our guest today. Is Rizal Kamal, who is the man of Malaysian comedy at the moment, making things happen in terms of the events comedy scene here in Malaysia, bringing world-class talent to Malaysia, and apparently he's tried his hand at stand-up comedy every now and then, making us all laugh. And the topic for today is Living Let Laugh, which is making people laugh for a living. So Rizal, welcome to Great People TV. Selamat Hari Raya. How have you been, man?
I'm good, Ben. Selamat Hari Raya to you. I've tried stand up, but I give up. It's tough. it's really tough to stand there on stage alone and try to make a bunch of strangers laugh. So I have the fullest respect for comedians to be able to do that.
No, 100%, because to make people laugh is the hardest job in the world, and to make people laugh without insulting them is even more harder. So it's thick skin to the highest order. So I respect all global comedians and the content that you have to look for. It has to be new content all the time. You can't use those jokes from last week or last month. It has to be new all the time. So,
no, it doesn't. It doesn't. Yeah, of course. And a lot of comedians, when they write material, to get the material to be good, it takes about 6 months to a year. Some of the better comedians maybe can do a joke for about 3 months or so, but generally 6 months to a year to write and complete a joke. And they'll be using those jokes for years.
Right. I thought that
finally retire.
Yeah, I thought in this day and age where you can see content very, very quickly because of social media, you have to keep the jokes relatively fresh. You can't use the same thing for a couple of months period. I mean, the expectation of comedians is higher these days, isn't it?
But it's tough to make people laugh, and it's tough to write really funny materials. So what comedians do is they practice in small shows, or they practice in open mics, and they try out jokes and refine and try out and refine until that joke becomes good enough for them to take it to the big stage where they can charge a little bit higher to make people really laugh. So it's a whole process. I just give you one example. Russell Peters, who I've worked with a few times, right? Russell will write and materials and practice materials in small clubs for about 6 months to a year. And then when the material is done and refined, he will take a global tour. He'll go all over the world, do 100, 200, 300 shows all over the world, and then they will tell the same joke to every city with some minor, with a splash of improv in the show, whether it's crowd work, talking to the crowd, or something current, just at the beginning of the set. But most of the time, 70% of the set is the same between each country.
Nice. Look, I know, all jokes aside, no pun intended, that was this, we know you, or most people know you as the man that makes the comedy shows happen, not just in Malaysia, but around the world. When I first got to know you many years ago, you started with Malaysia, and then you stretched your wings. Like you said, you deal with Russell Peters, you deal with big names. So we'll get up to that more in a minute. But tell us about the comedy scene in Malaysia. I mean, it took a bit of a hit, and but the laughs were silenced during the pandemic. But tell us about, are things coming back right now? Are things a lot better? Are there more shows?
Oh, definitely. It's been great. There's a lot of shows happening in KL. Smaller shows, larger shows. I'm doing some of the larger shows, and there are other promoters as well bringing in larger shows in KL, having shows in like Plenary Hall or ZAP and other spaces. And people are also doing shows in other cities across Malaysia. Previously, comedy shows are very much concentrated in Kuala Lumpur. But now you can see shows happening in Kuching, KK, Penang, JB, and all the other cities. So it's still restarting post-pandemic. The scene is still restarting, and people should expect a lot more comedy shows towards the second half of this year and next year onwards. Yeah.
Now let's
laugh, right?
Exactly, and the people who make us laugh are the talents. Okay. Now, once upon a time, I mean, no disrespect to any comedians out there, but I grew up with guys like Harith Iskandar, Jit Murad, the late Jit. Sorry, is Jit still alive?
No, Jit.
Sorry, sorry, I'm gonna edit that out. With sorry, let's take that again. So, with all due respect, to other comedians, I've always grown up with the late Jit Murad, Harith Iskandar, but right now there are other talents, like Ganchan, with a few other guys as well. Their names skip my head, and I've seen them. I mean, then they're really funny. They're very good. They work hard at their content. Who are the kings of comedy these days in Malaysia?
Well, it's previously when I first started, especially back in the late 2000s, there were only a handful of comics. That time, Harith Iskandar, Joanne Kam, Douglas Lake, 3. Jit Murad, on and off, more theatre. And then the young boys, the young boys that time, Calvin J, Rizal Kamal, Jason Leong, and the rest are just starting. So today, all of these comics, I think I would say that has been performing for more than a decade is about 20, 30 really good ones. So there's already a big group, and people's taste is diverse. Some people love Harith Iskandar, some people don't. Some people love the edginess of Rizal Kamal. A lot of the more conservative ones don't like his style. So we can see there is a diverse range of taste and a diverse style of comedy where people can compare and see who they like. And a lot of the times for comedy, it goes via racial lines, which means, which means that when Jason Leong does a show, I would say about 70% of the attendees are Chinese. And when Andrew Nato or Kevin J does a show, maybe up to 50%, 70% are Indians and so forth. So we're still in that evolution of taste. People are watching a lot more stand-up comedy now because it's so available on social media, and everyone's deciding what kind of style they like.
Now, tell us about, we're diverting the topic a little bit. I mean, not the topic, but the questions a little bit. I mean, we live in a different era right now in the sense that COVID is part of our life. Okay, and God.
Isn't it yesterday's news?
No. I mean, COVID. It is everyday news. It is everyday news. Yeah, and like COVID. I mean, God forbid another pandemic could. God forbid, could stop a lot of shows and everything like that.
Possibility.
So, but so moving forward, based on that fear, I mean, I hear the stories that the government is you're working with the government to try to work out, the tax cuts and the tax breaks for comedians. Can you tell us? I mean, I've seen it in the paper, in the media a little bit. Can you elaborate more about that and what's going on there and the latest developments?
So there's two parts to this question, right? I think the first part is because we've gone through COVID, everyone's a little bit more ready. And we don't foresee, we don't see, or we don't know when the next pandemic is going to be. So that part, I would say, is people are just taking advantage of today, where we're free and we can do a lot of things, and everyone's looking to expand their horizons as much as possible. Live life. A lot of people do realize during the pandemic, life is short, and when we have the opportunity, we have to take it. And I see a lot of that happening. In terms of what I'm doing with the government as the president of ALIVE, that's the Association of Arts, Live Events, Concerts and Festival. we are in terms of Malaysia, in terms of the government and industry, we are in a period of very fast transition, in the sense that we don't want corruption. We want rules to be set correctly, and we want taxation to be set correctly. And if Malaysia were to move from developing to develop, we have to eradicate corruption. That's what I believe, number one. But to do that, we must update the laws, because a lot of the laws are archaic. And because the laws are archaic and not with the times, we have we come to a lot of stumbling blocks for business growth. For example, I give you an example. For smaller comedy shows are extremely difficult to run because you need permits, and the permits in KL to do a small local comedy show, you need to put in a deposit of 10,000 to bring one international act, like even one comedian from Singapore. Doesn't matter how big the comedian is, an open micer from Singapore, even if you have it in a show in KL of 100 people, the deposit is 30,000. On top of that, the government is looking to implement 25% entertainment tax on the ticket. So this makes things impossible. So the grassroots or the small shows, a lot of them run underground. But you know, we remember during the COVID times that anyone who breaks the law get fined 100, 10, 50, 100,000, crazy amounts of fine. Everyone follows SOP. We've been trained during the pandemic to follow SOP to the dot, right? And we want to continue that way, in the sense that we're happy that we're actually following the rules. But as I mentioned, if the rules are not updated and we can't follow the rules because it doesn't make sense, a lot of people fall back to corruption. And so things need to move very fast on the government side.
Okay. That's very interesting. Thanks for updating that, because that's been a very gray area in terms of what was. I mean, and no. Again, sometimes people read different things and they remember different things and they gossip different things. So the news about that one has been a little bit all over the place. So I hope it really, really works out, because the industry, I mean, like you said, everybody needs to laugh, but what's the point of trying to what's the point of trying to put something together when it's not sustainable? So
it's very difficult for the small shows. So what we do, especially my company, LOL Asia, we focus on the bigger shows. We have to, because we are fully legal, we do everything 100% legal. Well, we are not able to do the smaller shows, so we have to focus on the big ones and focus on shows outside of Malaysia, international.
That's right. Now, Rizal, one thing about the comedy scene in Malaysia, it looks very, very urban. When I say urban, it's very English speaking, very educated product, and it attracts, your C-level people, your corporates, Malaysians who went overseas, or who, very, very exposed Malaysians who have traveled the world and studied domestic, and for those who study domestically as well. I mean, is that the space that you guys keep intending to keep punching in and, telling the jokes in? Because it's a very small market.
It's a niche. Stand-up is still a niche in Malaysia, but I would say that it's growing very fast, especially on the English stand-up. People getting to know comedians more, and people are being able to accept jokes. Some people can't tell between sarcasm and joke insult and actual actually giving insulting someone. A lot of people still can't tell the difference. So it's a growing scene. I would love for it to grow faster, but it's growing at a steady rate. You can see that in Indonesia, for example, Bahasa comedy is so much bigger. Bahasa Indonesia comedy is so much bigger compared to English. And because they have that acceptance. They love their language. For one thing, they love Bahasa Indonesia. Everyone speaks
They
it.
do. They do.
Um,
They do.
and they love to hear people tell jokes. So mainstream. Bahasa Indonesia comedy is mainstream in Indonesia, but it's still a very small niche in Malaysia because there's always that fear that the comedian might say something too political, too sexist or sexy, too bigoted, and so forth. And sometimes comedians do. So it's a matter of where and what platform they go on. For example, if they go online, you have to filter because you don't know who's watching. If you are performing in a small space, you can pretty much say whatever you want because it's a small space, it's a safe space. If you do a 2,000, 3,000 hall, there's a little bit more freedom because people come into the hall to enjoy the show. So you can see a little bit more, but every country has their level of acceptance, and the more open nations are, the more comedy can grow. The growth of comedy is on par with the level of acceptance in a society.
And final question, Rizal. It's been a great conversation. It's not. I don't really like to call Great People TV an interview. It's a conversation amongst very open-minded people and just shooting straight. But I mean, two parts to the final question, really. I mean, how far can you take the entertainment comedy business here in Malaysia, which is not just a mixture of what we call in Malaysia Roja, which is not just a mixture of Malaysian comedy, but we've got the Russell Peters, we've got the Jasons of this world, we've got the doctors of this world, lawyers of this world, making fun of their industry and other industries as well. How far do you want to take this genre in Malaysia to make good profits? Let's be honest, you're an entrepreneur, and also to continue to make people laugh. And God knows people need to laugh more because we live in such a tough time and challenging time with a recession, down economy, that we just need an avenue to let loose and let our hair down and just be entertained.
I think two things need to happen before comedy.
Oh, and sorry to interrupt. I forgot. Was this the other part of the question? Is, and any of those things that I just mentioned, will we see that in 2023? We're not far from the halfway point of 23.
Well, two things need to happen before we can fully grow this genre. Number one is being able to bring stand-up comedy to the masses. And
How do you do that?
Masses, the tickets have to be cheap enough or low enough for it to be able to reach more people. And to do that, of course, more people have to come to comedy shows. And the government or the authorities have to encourage people to actually go out and watch this and think of it as a very positive activity. So part two is the people need to think that going out for a comedy show is a health activity. Rather than you going to a spa, for example, you pay 100, 200, 300 ringgit for a spa treatment, you go to a comedy show and you laugh, you release stress, you increase your endorphins, you bond with a mate or your mom or your sister that goes to the comedy show with you. And when you go, you release and you feel so much better and the mind is clear. And usually when you go to a comedy show, you learn a thing or two. The comedians are smart. Comedians are really very intelligent people, and they have a different perspective to the world. So if you have, something stuck up your butt, the comedians will help pull it out because they give a funny perspective to things, whether it's politics, whether it's sex or relationship, everyday things. They give you a lighter perspective of things so that you chill out a little bit, So
go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah,
No, no,
in this,
please go ahead.
yeah. um, you can see that in developed countries, the number of people that goes out to comedy shows is ridiculous. For example, the Melbourne Comedy Festival, which just happened, um, they have over 100 shows a day during the
What?
festival. They have 100 shows
Really?
a day. Yeah,
Is
yeah,
that possible?
yeah. It's every single venue in Melbourne that can host a comedy show is converted into to a comedy venue, and there's a show. Thousands of comedians come down to Melbourne to do shows in theaters, in small rooms, in bars and clubs everywhere. Um, and people just go out as like, hey, like in KL, like, hey, let's catch a movie. Like, boom, you're out there in the movie. Over there, it's like, oh, this comic is coming down. Let's go. 2 hours later, you're in a comedy show and you watch, you enjoy yourself, go out, have a drink, watch another comedy show. You can watch 2-3 shows a day because the price point is already quite low. Everyone enjoys comedy, and it's become sort of like a societal norm.
Right. You know what was going through my head right there, Rizal? I think if all the comedians was watching this, if any comedian was watching our chat right now, and you were saying like that you were giving an example of a comedy festival to a spa where people can have an early release and everything, I'm sure the comedians would say, yes, it's better than a happy ending. So, but look, I mean, I've known you for a long time. You're a really nice
Yeah.
guy. You work very hard, and we wish you. I mean, I would, on behalf of Great People TV, we wish you all the best in keeping that journey. People always happy, because, like you said, comedy is not easy in terms of content. Comedy is not easy in terms of getting bums on seats. Comedy is not easy in terms of getting this break from this agency or that government or whatnot, and hopefully the laws will be friendlier to you. And nobody's trying to do anything wrong. It's just they're trying to keep everybody safe. But and it's conservative times that we live in. But ask any good comedian, how do you break the boundaries, break the conservatism? So yeah.
It's very easy. Make them laugh. Get get a bunch of conservative people into a room and make them laugh, and they realize, hey, these guys are just telling jokes. We comedians don't have an ulterior motive. Like people are always like, oh, they want to bring down the government or kuto Islam, all of this. No, man, they're just telling jokes. Their goal is to make people laugh, and they just have multiple ways of thinking on how to make people laugh. But essentially, that's just it.
Yeah. Well, if you ever need to tell good stories about comedy, not just for yourself, Rizal, and your comedians as well, and you need a platform to help promote them, just hit me on WhatsApp and I'll have them on Great People TV. And I really believe in what you're doing in your company.
Thanks.
And I mean, I'm sure it will do really, really well. It has grown tremendously. If you ever to ask, if you were to ask me many years ago when I first met you, an agency booking comedians from Malaysia in English, wow, I would have told you, go laugh harder, or keep trying to laugh. But looks like you're not getting the last laugh, you're getting the continuous laugh. So Rizal Kamal, thank you so much for appearing on Great People TV, and enjoy the rest of
Thanks for having me, man.
Raya month. Anytime, and please, my best to your family and my best to all your comedians, and tell them about Great People TV as well. They can come on.
Okay, we'll do that. Take care.
All right. Thanks, man. And thanks everyone for watching. Please, before we go, please follow our social media platforms on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And also just keep telling people about Great People TV. We've got more great guests coming up. Rizal Kamal is just one of many, many great guests. One about 3-4 times a month, and we will continue to do so. Thanks everyone for watching, and have a great week. Until the next episode of Great People TV. Take care.